Righteous Framer here, back with lesson 2 of series 3 of Breaking Down Bible Study. And this series is Theology and Apologetics. Let's get started. So in the last video, we talked about idolatry. We talked about the identity of God, characteristics about God such as his omniscience, his omnipresence, his omnipotence, his eternality, his invisibility. And so now we're going to talk about another very important factor about God, and that is him as creator. Yes, he is the creator and sustainer of the universe. So we're going to talk about some passages that talk about how he created everything. We're going to look at John 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. And the Word is referring to Jesus Christ. If you keep reading, you'll find out. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So if you want to know where everything comes from, who made this, who made that, everything came from him. In the beginnings, we're here in the beginning again. We heard it in John 1:1, and now we're hearing it in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, that's here, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void. So there was nothing there until God made everything. So we know that God is telling you, you don't have to search, you don't have to do science, you don't have to do research. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And then you can see around you on earth, you can look in the heavens, under the ground, in the water. Everything you see was made by Most High God, the Judeo-Christian God. Now, some people feel like, well, Misty, I don't know how I feel. I don't know if that's very scientific. I'm a logical, rational person. And the scientists that I listen to, they always talk about how the Big Bang Theory made everything. The Big Bang Theory says that the entire universe began as a super hot, supermassive, explosive point, and that the universe continues to expand. Many science textbooks teach that the universe began with an explosion 14 billion years ago. Now, I want to tell you all something about science. You have to understand this about science. For anything to be technically really scientific, it has to pass through the scientific method. There are 6 steps to the scientific method. This is how scientists come up with their theory. Big Bang Theory, they go through the 6 steps of the scientific method. And if it does not go through these 6 steps, it is not real science. It's not verifiable, true science. It's not fact. So before you say the Big Bang Theory is a fact, let's go through the scientific method very briefly. Number 1, you pick something you're curious about. For example, who made the world? Number 2, hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated guess at your question's answer. And you may say, I believe the earth was made, let's just say, like a big giant explosion. Okay, so it's a hypothesis. It's just an educated guess. It's just a guess. It's not facts. It's not studied. It's not research. It's not proven. It's not observed. It's just a guess. Number 3, experiment. Make a plan and test your hypothesis. So for it to be scientific, according to scientists' method, scientists' words, has to be experimented on. So they would have to go back in time, back to the beginning, and they would have to test the Big Bang Theory. How many know that you cannot go back and test Big Bang Theory? First of all, because it didn't happen. But you can't experiment on it, so you can't really know for sure or not. It's just an educated guess to a question. Number 4 step of the scientific method is data. Record your experiments results and your observations. You must test the results. So they can't even go to number 3. They can't do number 4. Number 5, analyze. Review and draw conclusions. They're unable to analyze the data from the Big Bang because they weren't there. And 6, report. Explain your results and whether your hypothesis was correct. What these unbelieving scientists have done is they have had a question about who made the earth, which everyone has this question, hypothesis, an educated guess, and they went to number 6, we report on our findings. They didn't even go through the steps. So the Big Bang Theory is just an educated guess. It's nothing more than an educated guess. It's not fact. It's not proven. It's not tested. It wasn't observed. You're supposed to be able to reduplicate it several times in a laboratory. They cannot do that. So by their own standards, Big Bang and even evolution is not even proven. It's just a hypothesis. Theory is a strong word. It's really just a hypothesis. This is a brochure that I got from the Koji bookstore. And it says, Answers to Evolution, 16 Reasons to Doubt Darwinism. So I'm going to go to question number 4, which talks about, is the Big Bang Theory good news or bad news for the theory of evolution? So we got 2 theories, Big Bang Theory and the evolution theory. The Big Bang Theory is bad news for the theory of evolution. So the 2 biggest things that unbelievers try to fight against the Bible about, they don't even agree on it. Why? Darwin's theory requires extremely large amounts of time to produce the necessary changes in living forms. However, the Big Bang Theory says that there is a beginning, a point in time when the universe was created. And that point was not long ago, not long enough for any organism to evolve. According to most mathematical calculations and sciences, a universe even 100 billion years old is not old enough for the development of a single cell. So it doesn't even make sense. So evolution can't prove Big Bang can't prove evolution. They can't even agree. Some scientists dislike the Big Bang idea precisely because it sounds too much like the biblical creation. In the 1920s, Albert Einstein said that the universe was infinitely large and infinitely old with no beginning. Later, Einstein said that this was the biggest mistake of his life. He finally accepted the necessity of a beginning. So they don't even agree. So you cannot base your entire origin of life on something that people can't even agree on, okay? Or that a scientist will agree at one point and then later on in his life say, it's the biggest mistake of my life. You have to be sure what you're talking about, okay? Then we're gonna look at question number 1. Is Darwin's theory of evolution a fact? No, the theory of Darwinian evolution says that complex creatures evolve from simple creatures naturally over time. This theory is not a fact. It has not been proven and cannot be replicated in a laboratory. As a result of this, Darwin's theory has undergone many changes over the years to conform to the evidence. However, many unresolved scientific issues remain. So we heard about Charles Darwin, and Darwin, he is known as the man who wrote the book. I actually saw this book, and I was doing a photo shoot for my niece today, and I saw a book for children. I made sure I hid it in the back. But yeah, so Darwin, he wrote a book called Darwin's Theory of Evolution. Most textbooks teach about a great naturalist named Charles Darwin who developed the theory of evolution by observing animals in the early 19th century. Darwin's theory suggested that complex creatures evolved from simple ancestors that gradually adapt to a changing environment over time. Evolution pretty much just says that, we all come from, some say we come from primordial slime, and that we just, over time, over many, many years, we became more and more intelligent, more and more organized, until we became who I am today. So they said, I came from primordial slime. I did not come from the image of God made in the Garden of Eden. They say that I come from primordial slime. I came from apes, okay? Now let's read about the Big Bang Theory. This is question 3. Darwin's theory suggests that complex creatures such as human beings developed from single-cell animals over 5 billion years. Mathematicians say that life could not become that complex that quickly, even in 100 billion years. So basically what they're saying is that, let's say I have this little piece of thing on my finger. You can see, I think you can see this or not, right? They're saying that for this little speck of just some type of life to evolve to where I am right now, talking, putting on makeup, educated, guessing, flirting, manipulating, all the things, they're saying this little piece of speck of life, it would need 100 billion years to get to where I am, or even anywhere near where I am. So they're saying if the Earth is only 4.5 billion years old, as they believe that it is, it's not enough time. It's not enough time to do what it needs to do. So they can't agree on the day that the Earth was made. I'm not a scientist. I didn't go to these fancy scientist schools. So we're going to read some quotes from scientists. So this is Charles Darwin to Asa Gray, cited by Adrian Desmond and James Moore and Darwin. He says, Charles Darwin, I am quite conscious that my speculations run beyond the bounds of true science. Speculations. It's just speculation. It's not true science because it can't go through the scientific method. So he's telling you my speculations about evolution, they run beyond the bounds of true science. It is a mere rag of a hypothesis with as many flaws and holes as sound parts. He's saying my theory of evolution is really a hypothesis, and it has as much, doubt in it as it has certainty. You don't want to believe in something that's not 100% sure. Let's read his other quote. Charles Darwin. To suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for emitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberrations, could have been formed by natural selection, seems, I confess, absurd in the highest degree. Okay, let's read 2 more quotes. If pressed about man's ancestry, I would have to unequivocally say that all we have is a huge question mark. Man's ancestry. Now, God clearly tells you in the beginning, God made man in his own image, male and female. God did all this stuff in the beginning, in the first week, okay? But they're saying they have a big question mark, a huge question mark. To date, there has been nothing found to truthfully purport as a transitional species to man. There's nothing linking an ape to a man. There's nothing. They don't have a single solid piece of evidence that says man came from monkey, because man was made in the image of God. And man was called to name monkey. Remember? He had all the animals come up to Adam, and Adam had to name them. Monkeys and men were made separately. So that's why there's no transitional species to man, because man was made the same way in the beginning. If further pressed, I would have to state that there is more evidence to suggest an abrupt arrival of man rather than a gradual process of evolving. Yeah, they're saying they're not seeing any evidence linking man to monkey or man to ape or whatever you want to call it. So that he said that suggests an abrupt arrival of man, meaning on this day God just made man. That makes more sense to these scientists than gradual development from monkey to man. Okay, or from primordial soup. Okay, and that quote was by Richard Leakey, the world's foremost paleoanthropologist, in a PBS documentary in 1990. He's the world's foremost. I mean, there's no paleoanthropologist that's more skilled or more educated or more trained than he is. He's telling you man came abruptly. That's what Genesis. The paleoanthropology is a branch of paleontology and anthropology which seeks to understand the early development of anatomically modern humans, a process known as hominization, through the reconstruction of evolutionary kinship lines within the family Hominidae. Working from biological evidence such as petrified skeletal remains, bone fragments, footprints, and cultural evidence such as stone tools, artifacts, and settlement localities. So the foremost man on this topic is saying, nah, it wasn't no transitional evolution between this type of species up to this type. It was just man made abruptly. The way I am right now, bam. Because humans, we just look like our parents. We're just a combination of our mother and our father. They're a combination of their mother, their father. They're a combination of their mother, their father. You only can pass down what you are. I'm going to read just an example. Genesis 1:11. And God said, let the earth sprout vegetation. So here's my vegetation. I got an example here. Vegetation. And vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth. Okay? So what God does is he makes something one time, he puts its seed in itself, and it makes after its own kind. So this plant, like another plant, looks like this plant, this plant, this plant, this plant, this plant, this plant. This plant will not evolve to another kind of plant. It can only bear the seed that it has, and it only makes a seed that looks like itself. Men deposit the seed into the woman, and this baby gets half of the mama's DNA, half of the daddy's DNA, and that's what it looks like. You don't evolve from monkeys. You look like your parents. That's as simple as it has always been. You can look that up in any laboratory. You can do the scientific method and figure that out. That's scientific. You only look like your parents. This is how we know where we come from. Genesis 1:26. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. Man is in the image of God. Verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Verse 28. And God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it. So just like with the plants, I put the seed that looks like you in you, and when you have kids, they will look like y'all. That's for animals, that's for plants, and that's for humans. We look like ourselves because we carry our own seed in ourselves. Okay? Even laboratories now, they can't make a human being without using seed. They have to use like a test tube baby or something. Now here there's some clones coming up. I don't know. But even a clone got to use stem cells from a person. You can't even just make a human out of nothing. After all these years, you need a human to make another human. That's on period. You need a sheep to make a sheep, a bear to make a bear, a lion to make a lion. There's no way around it. Last quote. This is Dr. Harold Urey, Nobel Prize winner in chemistry in 1934. All of us who study the origin of life find that the more we look into it, the more they study and do their scientific research, the more we feel that it is too complex to have evolved anywhere. We got to be honest with y'all. It's too complex. He said it didn't evolve anywhere. We believe as an article of faith that life evolved from dead matter on this planet. It is just that its complexity is so great, it is hard for us to imagine that it did. He's saying we believe it by faith. They have more faith than we do. Look, this is a book right here called I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. It is hard for us to imagine that it did. We believe it by faith, but we know it don't make sense. But we want to teach you in your school books for you to believe it so that you can miss God. They're teaching you a bunch of guesses. They're not even good guesses. Charles Darwin just really said it is a mere rag of hypothesis. It's not even a theory. It's a rag of a hypothesis. It's not even a good guess. And you're basing your whole faith in life on something that this Charles Darwin himself don't even believe in. This man is dead and gone, and you know where he went. He didn't believe in a God to put him in eternity. So don't put your faith in him, okay? Okay, so I want to get back to the Bible about a particular verse, and this is what concerns me. This is what has me so passionate about this topic. This is Romans 1:18-25. Verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of man. Listen, look at what I highlighted. Who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Now, suppress, it means to literally hold something down. It's like, imagine you're trying to hold a balloon underwater. The balloon is going to try all it can to get out this water. Oxygen is lighter than water, so when you put it underwater, it tries to come up. Suppression means you're trying to force something down intentionally. It's not like you don't know you're doing it. You're doing it intentionally. You're intentionally trying to suppress the truth, not in ignorance, not in I thought I was doing right, not by good intentions. You suppress the truth in unrighteousness. For what can be known about God is plain to them. I just read all these quotes from these scientists. They know it's plain. Unlike you and me, they studied it. They know. It's too complex to not be an intelligent divine being that's super, super powerful and really, really old. You know, who made them back then? It's too complex to just happen by accident or by evolution. They know. They know more than you know. They know more than I know that God made humans. They know it. The earth and the sun and everything. For what can be known, this is verse 19. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. Y'all, God showed them in the telescope and in the microscope. They know. Verse 20, for his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived. It's not a secret, it's clearly perceived. Ever since the creation of the world, in the things that had been made. You can look at the sun, you can look at the stars, you can look at the animals, you can look at the human eye, you can look at the woman's pregnancy, you can look at people hitting adolescence and hitting, geriatric ages. You could tell that God made these things. So they are without excuse. All these scientists are without excuse. When they meet God on Judgment Day, Charles Darwin, he's without an excuse. Dr. Harold Urey, he's without excuse. All of these scientists that teach you wrong, they're without excuse. Don't think they don't know what they're doing. Don't think for a second that I didn't know. They are literally suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. It's not a mistake. Don't think, they didn't know the devil tricked them. They are doing it on purpose. Okay? There's a spiritual world, remember I told you. They're working for another force. I'm working for a Most High God. They're working for the other. They're working for the other. Okay? Without excuse. Verse 21. For although they knew God, they saw him like, that's an intelligent designer. They may not have known Most High God. They may not have read the Bible. They may not have grown up in church. But they knew a divine creator. They knew a divine being. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him. But they became futile in their thinking. They know it's a lie. They teach on these fake hypotheses and all these theories. They became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, claiming to be these educated scientists and all the things, claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Now, of course, let's talk about idolatry in this sense. But I'm going to use it to refer to, if man is made the image of God, you're changing the glory, the image of God. You're exchanging it, the glory of the immortal God, for images resembling mortal men and birds and animals and creeping things. You're changing the image of God, who were made in his image, to the image of primordial slime, of bacteria, of animals, apes. You're changing the image of God to stuff like that. Verse 24, therefore God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity. God, I wash my hands of you. With a lot of people, I wash my hands of you. To the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie. They knew the truth is in Genesis. It's very plain to that. He's telling you, this is who I am. I did this. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. Amen. Don't think for a minute that these scientists don't know what they're doing. I promise you they know what they're doing. They spent all their life studying, and they can't find that God's real. And I have a book right here by an ex-atheist. Lee Strobel took the time to study. This book is full of science. This man, Lee Strobel, he was like, Is God real? So he went on through the search, New York Times bestseller. A journalist investigates scientific evidence that points toward God. He says, my road to atheism was paid by science. So these men are suppressing the truth and unrighteousness that can make atheists. My road to atheism was paid by science. But ironically, so was my later journey to God, Lee Strobel. During his academic years, Lee Strobel became convinced that God was outmoded, a belief that colored his ensuing career as an award-winning journalist at the Chicago Tribune. Science had made the idea of creator irrelevant. The purpose of evolution, and for some people, the Big Bang, is to try to make God irrelevant. They're trying to say, we don't need a God. We don't really need a God. But today's science is pointing in a different direction. In recent years, a diverse and impressive body of research has increasingly supported the conclusion that the universe was intelligently designed. At the same time, Darwinism has faltered in the face of concrete facts and hard reason. Darwinism is a failure. Now, let me read you something that's about the fossil record. Does the fossil record support Darwin's theory? Question 9. No. Darwin predicted that if his theory were correct, he's giving y'all a way out, there should be evidence that simple life forms gradually developed into more and more complex creatures. Charles Darwin gave you a way out. Paleontologists, those who study fossils, generally state that the fossil record does not support Darwin's theory in two major ways. The fossil, they cannot find the bones to support what Charles Darwin taught. Number 1, animal types tend to appear suddenly in the fossil record, not gradually as Darwin predicted. Therefore, each animal type is missing the link to its former ancestor, meaning they see an animal type here, then an animal type here. They don't see this one's linked to this one. It's just here and here. Number 2, animals tend to remain relatively unchanged throughout their time on Earth, not slowly developing into new forms as Darwin predicted. So if you look at old pictures, tigers look the same. Old drawings, they all look the same. They don't evolve in any amount of time. They just look the same because that's how God made them. And one more thing about Darwin, we're going to go ahead and get rid of Darwin. Darwin don't know what he's talking about. Question 7. Do all scientists accept Darwin's theory of evolution at the cell level? No, most scientists still accept some version of the theory of evolution, but a growing number of scientists have become dissatisfied as they learn more facts about the complexity of life. In the 1800s, when Darwin lived, most scientists thought the cell was a simple thing, a little lump of carbon compounds. They also thought that the creation of life was a fairly simple process. And improved microscopes have revealed the complexity of those simple lumps called cells. We now know that cells contain thousands of different types of organic molecules because the design and function of the cell is extremely complicated. The creation and function of life are not simple. So I'm telling you all, people are just like, every time they keep living, they're like, but maybe Darwin ain't right after all. Question 11. Despite the illustrations in textbooks showing gradualism, a gradual transition in the evolution of ape to man, there is no evidence for it. In the case of ape to man, virtually every missing link or find has turned out to be ape-like and non-human. Not a traditional kind of ape man, and few finds were deliberate hoaxes. They were making up false evidence to prove that monkey came to man. I'm going to tell y'all what they're doing, y'all. By their unrighteousness, suppress the truth. They don't want you to be saved. They want you to believe a lie, so they are suppressing the truth. They're not, I didn't see it. Oh, I didn't see that. They see it, and they're pushing it like, oh, I didn't see that. So everything a scientist tells you is not true. I just read you quotes from scientists saying, well, I don't really know if it's true or not. Astronomer Robert Jastrow comments, if the universe had not been made with the most exacting precision, we could never have come into existence. It's an intelligent designer. It is my view that these circumstances indicate the universe was created for man to live in. That is known as the Anthropic Principle, meaning everything is so fine-tuned, like the distance of the sun to the earth, the distance of the moon to the earth, the temperature on the earth, the amount of oxygen that we have on the planet. They're saying that if anything was off by too much, man could not live here. So they're saying somebody had to know this is what man needs to live. They need this much oxygen, they need this much sun, they need this much light, they need this much that. Somebody had to know what we would need, so he had to make the earth for us to be here. The late astrophysicist Sir Fred Hoyle suggested that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology. Indeed, a super intellect has fine-tuned our universe for the existence of life. Somebody had to make it so we could live here. Astronomer George Greenstein comments, as we survey all the evidence, the thought insistently arises that some supernatural agency, or rather, capital A agency, must be involved. Is it possible that suddenly, without intending to, we have stumbled upon scientific proof of the existence of a supreme being that's a God? Was it God who stepped in and so providentially crafted the cosmos for our benefit? Now, read some quotes. Let's read the Bible verse. Psalm 19, 1-4. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. This is what Romans was talking about. Verse 19 and verse 20. Verse 19 says, for what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world. So that there's no way you can hide it. It says day by day, Psalm 19, day by day they pour forth speech. Look at the sun. You just see. You can look at the sun, the stars, moon, and the ocean, and just know there's a God. They pour forth speech. Night after night they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where their voice is not heard. It don't matter if you're German, Russian, Chinese, American, no matter what race, nationality, or tongue that you're from, you can understand fluent those stars, those constellations. How do all the constellations stay the same way they were? How come it stays the same shape? You know, how come the Big Dipper don't change its shape? How come the North Star keeps staying the North Star? It's like, they pour forth speech and every race can understand it. Their voice goes out into all the earth. Their words to the ends of the world. There's no excuse. There's no excuse.